Well, I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for having us here. I've known about this problem for a while. We tried working on it many years ago when we had community projects available from Washington, and then they went away. Now they're back, and I'm glad we can start working on bridges again. You know, the City of Belton came to me last year with a project that qualified for our community funding program that we have reinstated in the appropriations process. I am on the appropriations committee. We are called Cardinals because the rest of the Congress doesn't know what we do and can't figure it out. But we are the folks who fund the government. I tell the other guys, you give me the I want list, and I give you the you can have list. And that's kind of the way it works in Washington. One of the issues with me personally is I'm a conservative. And so when I first got on the Appropriations Committee, I told Tom DeLay I didn't want to be on the Appropriations Committee because I came up there to save money, not spend money. And he said, well, he was at that time the majority leader of the House, and he said, well, I'm going off, and whether you like it on that committee, so whether you like it, Texas is telling you, you got to go on. As it turns out, it's been one of the great gifts that they gave me in Washington because we are the committee that always passes a bill and always gets something done. Although it's a different kind of work because it's hard. But believe it or not, we've saved $1 billion a year from the previous year ever since I've gotten on the committee, but that never gets published anywhere on the face of this earth. So we are slowly spending less. If you take a look at the hard-earned tax dollars of Texans, you want to make sure that as many of those come back to good projects that affect people and the community and the way of life. And this project that was brought to me by the mayor and the city manager is one of those projects. I personally used to live to where the only way I could get to my house was across one of those things. And tell you a story. We had some guys that worked in my yard, and one of them was going home, and he was trying to get home. He'd had a little bit too much to drink, and he was trying to get home, and so he thought he'd go the back road. But the low water bridge was flooding. So when he got there, he didn't know what to do, so he came back to my house. It was in the middle of the night, and he was pounding on the door. Well, my daughter was there. My wife and I were out. It was about, not middle of the night, about 10 o'clock at night, but it was dark. My wife and I were out someplace, and we had my oldest daughter taking care of the place. So she and one of her girlfriends. So they panicked and called a neighbor, and he came running up with a shotgun. Fortunately, he knew the guy, and so he said, what's the problem? He said, I didn't know anybody else to go to but here, but I don't know how to go any other way but across that bridge. Somebody's got to help me get out of here. So my neighbor took him out of there. That's a little low water bridge story I had of my own personal experience. These tax dollars don't come easy, and I don't take them as easy. But if it's a better life for Belton, it's a better life for everybody as far as I'm concerned. But you know, we do have projects that deserve to be criticized, like this bottomless pit of money for a high-speed rail in California that won't go 80 miles an hour. We drive 80 miles an hour on the highway, and yet they're putting millions and millions of dollars into it. But one of my favorites, and I think you'll enjoy this, is they spent $36 million to determine whether your hair turns white from stress. I could have talked to them about it and explain that I have living proof that it does. Look, this is a great day because we're going to fix something that needs fixing. And if we can do that and do it successfully, that's an important point for everybody. So thank you for being out here with me. And I have a little check here, or actually it's a big check, for $5 million for this project. And I think you can thank your mayor and your city council, your city manager for driving being the driving force behind this. And I want to give it to them at this time. Don't try to catch this one. We got another one for that.
All right. Thank you very, very
Yes, sir.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate you very, very much. All right.
Thank you so much, Judge.
You bet. Like your hat.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. It's another great day to be in Belton. I'm going to complain to the Chamber of Commerce. They could have done a little better on the weather, but we are glad to be here. I've got about 5 pages of notes. I'll try to get through quickly because it's a little chilly. This has been a goal of the city for decades. Those of us who've lived here a long time can remember massive floods and huge log piles down here. And this is a very exciting project, and we're extremely thankful for Congressman Carter to get this done for us. It's going to do a lot of great things for our city. This is the last low water crossing in the city. It's going to help with flood mitigation. We have a major flooding problem. It backs up under the interstate on the access roads as well as into the city itself. This is going to help that. It's going to provide additional emergency access for vehicles and personnel. It's essential to access for our city infrastructure. We have lift stations, sewer lines, and water lines all in this area that need to be accessed regardless of the weather. It's going to be access to important city facilities such as the shooting range. The City of Belton, the police department has a shooting range that's been used by over 50 law enforcement agencies around Central Texas area. It's a great facility, and it's going to provide better access to that. And lastly, certainly going to open up a great deal of landlocked areas for future development, some park sites. I'm not sure what all can go down here. Some of it's still a floodplain area, but it's going to open up a lot of area that we've never been able to utilize before. I certainly want to thank Judge Carter for coming. He said he couldn't get to his hat today. I wore my hat specifically because he always wears his hat. And he said he had ice damage. He couldn't even get to his hat because of the ice damage he had yesterday. But he still made it here with the check. And so we're extremely pleased with that. Thank you for everyone who came. I would like to recognize Assistant City Manager Police Chief Gene Ellis back there in the back, Fire Chief John Fontenot, Director of Public Works Matt Bates with the shiny head back there in the back, and Director of Planning Bob Van Til, everyone who came. But most of all, of course, we want to thank Mr. Carter, Congressman Carter, for the work he did in Congress in helping us to get this project moving forward. As I said, it's been a long time dream for a lot of us to make these improvements, and I think it's a great step forward for the City of Belton.
All right. Well, now that the sun has finally come out, I can go to my longer speech since y'all are all getting warm. What a great day. Thank you all for coming. We're just so excited to have you here today. It's been, as the mayor mentioned, this has been a dream coming for a long, long time, and something that we've worked on for a great time, and we just so appreciate Congressman Carter for his help. My brief comments today will review some of the history that led us to this significant announcement. For decades, this area has been susceptible to flooding and synonymous with log jams. There are a number of residents that live in the area. It was the site of the city's landfill until it was closed in the 1980s. It served as the location of the city's major wastewater lift station and also contains vacant, developable property. But unfortunately, this low water crossing that is behind me prevents vehicle access in and out of the area with any rain that exceeds just a couple of inches. I understand there was even a helicopter rescue in the late 90s as a result of flooding that prevented emergency access by drivable ambulance. The September 8th, 2010 flood was a significant event and really a wake-up call for the entire community. Our communications director, Paul Romer, can provide photos of the 9-inch rain in Belton and its impact in this immediate area. The low water crossing compounded emergency response for rescues as well as access to the sewer lift station, and it really threatened our sewer system. We had a great team response from entities all across the region, the cities, Bell County, DPS, Fort Hood, Corps of Engineers, and others who came to help in that emergency. Congressman Carter graciously made a site visit after the 2010 flood to see the impact, and we so much appreciate that. The judge, former Mayor Jim Covington, and I stood on the low water crossing behind me, which had become a dam with debris exceeding 10 feet in height, well above even Jim Covington's head, and you know how tall Jim was. So it was an amazing sight as we stood right there and just watched the amazing debris field. Our response to the 2010 event included several recommended actions. We pursued a Nolan Creek watershed study, which included partner communities across the region and Bell County. We investigated an emergency flood warning system to be established along Nolan Creek. There was a recommendation for an emergency operations center at the Belton PD and enhanced emergency response protocols. Also, there was the identification at that time of 3 low water crossings that contributed to flooding and needed to be removed. With some other improvements that we were making along Nolan Creek, we proceeded to do what we could. We funded a Nolan Creek early warning system and established 5 monitoring stations. We secured interlocal agreements with all the area cities in Bell County. We established an emergency operations center at the Belton PD. We implemented a code red alert system for residents and businesses. We readily removed 2 of the 3 low water crossings behind City Hall and behind the Harris Community Center. But funding a replacement bridge here represented the biggest challenge, and so it became a component of the city's strategic plan goals for the future. The main potential funding source that we identified during all this time was TxDOT's bridge replacement program. The bridge had been included in their analysis, but repeated attempts to get it funded were unsuccessful due to funding constraints. In the meantime, there was a development occurring up along the interstate, the ASCO equipment yard, Taco Bell and Popeyes along the interstate, the regional law enforcement training facility established on the other side of the creek behind us. But additional proposed development, both private and public, was evaluated yet was not possible due to poor access and the threat of flooding presented by this low water crossing. In late 2021, Congressman Carter's office approached us with an inquiry about critically needed infrastructure projects. Your great team, Congressman, included August Alvarado, Cheryl Hassman, Sam Garrison, Grady Bourne, and Jonas Miller. Great team. We really appreciate everything they've done. A bridge replacement project was submitted in January 2022 for the community project funding, and that submission included regional partnership support highlighted by Mayor Carpenter, and we kept in close contact with the Congressman's office throughout the year, including Director of Communications Emily Taylor. With the judge's persistence, $5 million of the $6.2 million project funding has been secured, and we'll certainly do our part in contributing the balance of the $1.2 million. We are just so appreciative of your support, Congressman, and the sustained commitment to Belton and to Central Texas. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Let's have a hand for Congressman Carter and his staff. Again, we're hopeful to get the design work underway this year and hopefully to see construction very, very soon thereafter, hopefully next year. It's a big project. Certainly going to be some important design components as we figure out how to address the access issues and provide a replacement for this bridge. But we thank each one of you for coming today. It's a great day for Belton, and we just want to thank you for coming, and that concludes our program. Thank you very, very much.